for the TCEQ, and I just would like to put some suggestions forward on those. A clearly defined oil and gas site to encompass all equipment, bounded by outermost equipment of the location. By including functional equivalents in its definition, receptors will effectively protect sensitive populations such as children, the ill, and the elderly. A minimum distance requirement protects people living in unincorporated parts of the county. That's a 440-foot as a minimum setback requirement to protect schools from industrial air contamination. Requires periodic permit renewal and clearly delineated which acts will lead to denial or revocation of permits. The proposed rule should apply retroactively to extend feasibility. And I have a copy of those I'd like to give you.
Thank you. Sue Ann Lorig.
Thank you. I'm Sue Ann Lorig, and I live in Flower Mound, and I'd just like to add a little about the setbacks. It varies whether you're inside the city limits or outside the city limits and which city you're in, and I honestly believe that it should be considered a safety issue no matter where you live, and that there should be minimum setbacks that are throughout the state, and this 100 feet or 400 feet or even 1,000 feet are not enough. I'm thinking more like a mile. I'm serious, because the wind blows and explosions occur. And I'm not being facetious here. I seriously believe that they should be increased to that amount throughout the entire state. Thank you.
Jim Wall.
My name's Jim Wall, and I'm also from Flower Mound. Flower Mound is a beautiful little community that we've lived in for the last 22 years. We've always enjoyed its rural location, and now I'm scared to death because we've got these gas wells coming at our little town like a plague of locusts. And early in the year we went to a presentation that was in Argyle where I learned that there was not enough inspectors to inspect wells that already existed. And so one of my questions back then was, well, why do we keep letting permits for these wells if there's not enough inspectors to inspect them? And after asking the question, it became a reality that if someone fills the form out properly, it's approved because nobody had authority not to approve it. If all the information's there, they have to approve it. And I think it's just ridiculous. Number one, we need to, if we can't handle the inspections for these wells, they shouldn't be permitted, number one. Number two, our little town, and by the way, our mayor's here, and I'm really happy to see that she's here to listen to this, but we've got a well going in on Hilliard Field, which used to be a nice little pasture out there. It was kind of the entrance into our community, and now they're planning on putting up to 20 wells in that area. So all of a sudden now our little rural community is going to look a lot like Ditch. And I'm not prepared for that. That's not what I bought into when I moved there, and I know none of the rest of the community did. Yet we're feeling very helpless because our state organizations that should be really protecting us really don't have the power to do anything. And consequently, they haven't done it. Calvin Tillman has been complaining for years now. He's gotten some improvement now, but still, to think that the air in this rural location of Texas should be worse than Los Angeles or worse than New York or Detroit is just ridiculous. I mean, who in their right mind would think that that would be acceptable? And so, you know, I really know that you guys are struggling, but I got to tell you, we got to do something about getting these regulations improved. One of the things that I'm going to do, instead of buying a car this coming year, we're going to spend $500 to get canisters out in our yard to measure the air in our yard. And I'm going to do that within the next week before they start drilling that well at Hilliard. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to be on the phone to you all if that changes after they start drilling. And I'm going to continue to do that just to keep my family safe. We may not be able to drive a new car, but by God, I keep my family safe, because I know you all don't have the wherewithal to do it.
Ginger?
Good evening. My name's Ginger Simonson. I'm also from Flower Mound, Texas, and I don't want you guys to get the idea that Flower Mound right now is overwhelmed with gas wells. It's not. But we listened to Calvin Tillman when he came to our town hall back in January, and we realized what the problem was going to be if we sat still and didn't do anything. So we've had a lot of things to get us activated in Flower Mound, and two ladies are here tonight who are going to address two very important aspects to that. And that is when the Texas State Health Service did a study in Flower Mound to investigate cancer clusters, breast cancer cluster, as well as a childhood leukemia cluster. A couple years before that, I think they did a thyroid cancer cluster. So we have some issues in Flower Mound that we think are important and need to be addressed. But our issues are the same issues as everybody in this audience. So with that, I want to just talk about a couple of things that make me scratch my head. The first one is that I know that TSEP will do evaluations at gas sites for gas companies. You guys have a great briefing, and you show where things leak, where emissions come out of, and what you can do to fix them. Vapor recovery devices, emission control devices. And it's pretty amazing, because some of the things that these companies can put on their equipment will actually save them money, because they'll be able to capture the methane and other volatile chemicals that are going out into the atmosphere. They can actually make money by putting in equipment that will better protect us. And they don't. So my question to you, sir, is you can't mandate them to do it. Apparently we can't mandate them to do it in our municipality of Flower Mound. Who can mandate these companies to take action to protect us?
I mean, when you say protect them, you raise some, you talk about some good pieces of technology in our vapor recovery system. And you're right, we can't mandate a specific piece of equipment. What we do, when we try to do our existing rules and regulations, and what I think the goal of the proposed rules and regulations is to mandate a standard and say that this is a level that you have to do. So you can't get more than this. And that you can, and the way you get there is either through distance or through some of these control technologies you're talking about. So we have to build a box and say this box is protected. And then you have to decide how you want to design your system in order to meet that standard. So standard current today, that's the box we're in. Our goal with the new rules is to get a better box that's likely more protected and then hold it to that standard.
So are you going to grandfather these gas companies so that if they have existing equipment that's in before you come up with new technology, do they get to keep the old stuff, or are they going to have to be brought up with the new best practices?
And I want to speak to this. I'm saying these are still currently proposed for the new PBRs and new standard permits related to oil and gas. They do have an existing facility clause that allows existing facilities to operate as they currently are until they make a change. Or unless they have another facility that's owned and operated and controlled by that same company within a certain distance of that, at that point, that facility is big enough to come up to the new standards. And yes, there is a clause that allows existing facilities to continue on. I'm not sure this. Maybe. I get close.
All right.
Let me get it here.
The next thing I want to talk about is I'm glad, and I thank you guys for bringing up this very important thing about reporting. Because I'll tell you what, I'm betting money that this is severely underreported. I pass by Scenic Road in Flower Mound, at least 3 times a week. There is an overpowering smell from one of the compression sites in our area. And I know that there are emissions coming out of there because I was with a gentleman with a flare camera who showed me that. So we have problems every day there. Have I ever called TSEC? I'm ashamed. I have never done that. I did ask somebody else to call, and they did, and they're going to talk about that. But I think underreporting is a big problem. We sit there and say, oh geez, well, that's what happens when you get gas wells in. So I think that's a concern that everybody needs to be aware of. The next thing that I want to talk about, I want to transition into the EPA. There are studies being done across the country. I like to look at the ground zero states, Colorado and Wyoming. They had a lot of practice with this. I think Mr. Cheney started in Wyoming. After he got his Halliburton loophole in, he decided to go home and practice. And so there are a lot of studies that are showing very distinct health effects in those areas. You gonna let me go? Is that my 5 minutes up? Or what? You gonna give me a little more?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So there have been very good scientific studies done, especially in Colorado, Garfield County, Colorado. They have done what I would call scientific studies. They put up monitoring equipment, and then they actually study what is going down downwind of each of these facilities, and they tie it to the health effects in that area. And then they use various modeling techniques to predict what is the likelihood of, say, cancer in 2 years, in 70 years. And there is absolutely plenty of information, and I'll be happy to give you this one study. It's the latest from Garfield County. It came out in September. So there are studies going on across the country. We know people in Pennsylvania are dying from bad water and other things, not dying literally, but they're having a lot of problems there. What is the federal government doing to force states to protect citizens? Our due process here in Texas doesn't exist. You can see that. I mean, he's trying, but his hands are tied. Other people don't even try at all. Texas Railroad Commission. They have enough inspectors maybe to check a well once every 5 years. We do self-compliance here in Texas. I went to the EPA's meeting in Fort Worth back in June, and there was a lot more people, I'd say 1,000 people. Story after story, people got up and said, we need somebody to protect us. We need the EPA to come in and make the states follow the rules. And you guys are doing a study, and you're going to give us results in 2012. You know how many kids are going to get leukemia by then? How many women are going to get breast cancer? I don't know. They know in Garfield County, though. I think that's enough for my time. I could go on forever, but I know a lot of other people need to talk.
You brought up the meeting in Fort Worth, and that was specifically about water issues. And there were 650 people there. It was a good turnout. I think, by the hour, there were more people there than anywhere else, including the big meeting in New York when they were thinking they were going to have thousands, and turned up, we got 1,200 people, 2 days over, 4 sections. So the people in Fort Worth really turned out, and I think some of the folks really got the word out, and so we could get the information. That was what was important. And that was a study design, and part of this is driven by, the research and development, study. So you have to peer review the study design, take the data in, and then, come 2012, probably December 31st, 2012, we're going to use all the time.